I must appreciate each and every medical student for taking out this time on this Sunday, because, and I also think that you have a great control, a little control over your mind, and to increase the control over the mind, Dr. Ajay Sankhe will guide us for the improvement. I will briefly introduce Dr. Ajay Sankhe. Dr. Ajay Sankhe has passed his MD in pediatrics from Mumbai University in the year 1989. For more than 25 years, he is in the clinical practice and is renowned as a well-known pediatrician in the north region of Mumbai and Thane. He is the director of Bhaktivedanta Hospital and Research Institute, which is a 200-bedded tertiary care center at Mira Road. He is also the director of 6 more units of Bhaktivedanta Hospital located in Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. Bhaktivedanta Group of Hospital is known for its quality medical care with added spiritual component. Under his leadership, the hospital has collectively performed more than 40,000 free surgeries for poor patients. The hospital has received a Worldwide Achievers Healthcare Excellence Summit Award in 2015 for the best multi-specialty hospital in Maharashtra for innovation and research at the hands of Honorable Mr. Ram Vilas Paswan. Dr. Ajay Sankhe has been recognized for his commitment to social upliftment and has received many awards. In particular, he has received the Rashtriya Udyog Ratan Award in 2013 given by National Organization for Commerce and Industry. Beyond all this, he is the sincere seeker on the path of spirituality. The Bharat Ratna Pandit Bhimsen Joshi Government Hospital in Bhayandar is operating a 20-bed ICU, which is also taking care of 200 COVID patients. Dr. Ajay Sankhe led this task to set up in record 15 days of time. So I request Dr. Ajay Sankhe to guide all the medical students of different colleges of Maharashtra who are struggling currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhutane. I'm very happy, very glad that I'm able to interact with so many of budding doctors. And it is a time where the whole world has been topsy-turvy due to Corona. And more than ever before, we are facing a situation which no one really knows how to face it. Even the top psychologists and top politicians, motivational speakers, all of them put together also are unable to alleviate the fears of people's heart. And many suicides have happened. Students have committed suicides. So this is the apt topic which you have chosen. So I'm grateful to the organizers for giving me this chance. And I'm very happy to be amongst all the medical students and doctors. Thank you for this opportunity. So I have been told to speak on the topic of harnessing the powers of the mind. And you will find that there are literally thousands and thousands of speakers on this topic. It's a very interesting topic. No matter how much you discuss, it is less. So that shows the power of the mind. So therefore, we will just take a little overview on what is this mind, first of all, and how people look at it. So since very ancient times, people have tried to see this mind and analyze it, diagnose through it, deal with it. And we have people like Patanjali, whose whole Yoga Sutra is to simply control the mind. Then there's Maharshi Vyasa, Yoga Vasishtha, so many of ancient people. Most of our rishis, they were expert at dealing with this mind. And in the recent times, in say 19th century, 1870, the first time the modern psychology that came in picture. And then various people have influenced it. And one of the prominent names is obviously Sigmund Freud. Everyone knows about him. He was prominent because he was controversial. He put out his theories of psychoanalysis, theories of sex, so many theories. And today, to this date, he appears to be dominating the thought process on the subject of psychology or subject of mind. So let's look at how much he understood actually the mind. So certain startling facts about Sigmund Freud is that he wrote so many literatures on mind and extremely explosive materials on mind. And because of that, 13 times he was proposed for a Nobel Prize. 13 times. But at no time he got it. He didn't get it. Because at one point of time, actually, he asked a contemporary scientist, Albert Einstein, who was most revered and respected in the world, to propose his name. And Albert Einstein said, no, I cannot. Because he was in that controversial kind of space. His controversial statements were there. So even though he was very emphatic about that, he knew exactly what he is talking. He knew what is the mind, how it thinks, feels, or wills, desires. Another startling fact about Sigmund Freud is that he was dependent on cocaine. He would regularly take cocaine just to feel stimulated. Now, what kind of control of mind is this? Not only that, if you control the mind, you can manipulate the mind. But Sigmund Freud in 1839 committed suicide. Now, many of you might be knowing these facts, but I'm just repeating these facts just to make you aware that we are not dealing with a subject which is very easy. It will be very, you can say, daring for me to say that I'm going to tell you something which no one has told you ever before. It's not like that. This is a subject which has been going on for millennia. And the more you discuss, the more you understand that you don't know anything. And Dr. Putane himself, he said that he's a psychiatrist. So he will vouch for this, that the more you try to understand what it is, it's more difficult. So let us take some examples of people who have really mastered the mind. So one who has mastered the mind generally is a very successful person because he knows how to deal with his mind. So he will be most successful, most powerful, that kind of personality. So one such example is from the Mahabharata. Who is this? This is Arjuna. Arjuna, he had such power of the mind, he had such control over the mind. And because of his mental control, he could even forego sleep for many, many months. Without sleep, he could survive. That kind of mental power. That's why one of his names is Gudakesh. Gudakesh means one who has controlled his sleep. So now all of you must be knowing that if you don't sleep, you feel like irritated and you feel very low. And it will take a toll on your body, immune system, everything. In fact, right now, one of the immune boosters I continuously tell people to make sure that they have that immune booster is good sleep. If you sleep well, you have a good immune system. So Arjuna had that kind of control that he could go without sleep for several months, not days. Plus he had such focused mind that he could shoot arrows with the science called as sonic archery. That means you hear and you shoot in that direction and you actually hit the target. So the science of sonic archery was mastered by Arjuna. So you can understand how much focused he was. He would chant the mantras with such focus that when he wanted to collect various divine weapons for upcoming war of Mahabharata. So Krishna had told him that you should get the astra from Lord Shiva, Pashupatastra. So he goes to the forest, Himalayas, he meditates. And because of his powerful meditation, focused meditation, Lord Shiva actually appears. Not only that, further than that, he actually goes to the heaven through the agency of Lord Indra. Now, in the heavens, when he is being sort of as a guest, he has been received well, and whenever important guest comes, naturally you have some entertainment program. So in one of the entertainment programs, Urvashi spots him. Urvashi is a celestial nymph. She's an Apsara. So she sees Arjuna. He was very handsome, very well built, and a perfect description of what a male should be. He was Nara. His name is Nara. So, in a perfect male, that is Arjuna. And she immediately gets attracted to him. And she says, I'm very attracted to you. Now in Swargaloka, this is very common. And Arjuna, because he knew the family history well, he said, but you are my mother. You are my great-great-great-grandmother. Because you are the wife of Pururava, who was my ancestor. So I cannot deal with you in this fashion. So she tells him that this Swargaloka, the rules are different. This doesn't apply here. And still he insisted, no, I will not get into this. And because of that, Urvashi curses him. That's a different long story. But I'm saying this kind of control. See, everyone who has so-called control of mind, he can very easily fall victim to the sex desire. Very easily. Big people, whether it is Indra, whether modern day politicians. Today, in fact, one of the commonest ways of blackmailing a politician is to hook him on to some sex scandal, create a CD of that. It's called as a CD blackmailing. So they do it because when you have power, this is the thing which you want. You want to enjoy in this life. And in the material world, the biggest enjoyment is sex life. So Arjun had that kind of control that he could say no to Urvashi. And now such person who is expert in archery, he is a perfect male, who has controlled his slave, who could say to no to Urvashi, who could chant the mantras and within short time attract Lord Shiva's attention. So you can understand there is no one who has controlled the mind as good as Arjuna. Now, let us look at what happens to Arjun when he's just about to fight the greatest battle of his life. He has fought many battles, and every battle he won because of his prowess. But this particular battle, the battle of Mahabharata, he comes, and when he sees to all the people whom he is supposed to fight, he tells Krishna that I want to see everyone. Please take my chariot in between the two armies. And both the sides he sees that, oh my God, here is my grandfather Bhishma. Here is my Guru Drona. Here is my another Guru Kripacharya. Here is my brother Duryodhana and all his other brothers, 100 brothers. Here is my mama. Naturally, he gets completely confused at that time. And then in that confusion, he decides not to fight. He is completely in distress, such distress that he had all the symptoms which we hear and study about a panic attack. He couldn't hold his bow. It just fell down. Tears were flowing from his eyes. The hairs on his body were standing on end. There was a fine tremor in his limbs. His throat was completely parched. He couldn't speak. He couldn't gulp. So you can imagine what kind of situation is this. And he, in that utter desperation, he just sat down. Just sat down. And he tells Krishna that, "Oh Govinda, I cannot fight. I'm very sorry." And then the whole Gita was told. Whole Gita was told. For what? So that the most powerful controller of the mind, like Arjuna, could get his mental control again. So you can imagine what kind of subject we are trying to deal with. That anyone who says that I have controlled my mind, or anyone who says that I will teach you how to control mind, or 10 ways of being happy through the mental control. These are all superficial statements. They will be exposed at the time of test which will come in your life. All of you who are hearing this topic, now I'm just for a second or maybe a few seconds, just try to remember the most eventful or most prominent event in your life which has affected you the most. Try this. I'm giving you a few seconds. I'm keeping quiet. So I think you might have probably chosen amongst a few the topmost one, because generally it's not one event. There are several events in everyone's life, but amongst them, whatever is topmost. And I, more or less with certainty, I'll tell you, most of you would have chosen a negative emotion as the event. Most of you. I don't know, right now you are not in front of me, so I cannot find out whether you had any remembrance of a happy event. But most of you will generally have an impactful event in your life which is negative in nature. So this is what the reality of life is. That the negativity always affects us more severely, more strongly than the positive aspects. And therefore, all those who will claim that we can teach you how to be happy by mind control, it's a very superficial kind of a talk, which will not actually tell you how to deal with adverse events in your life. So today we are, with my whatever little understanding I have and experience I have from getting some kind of training from the spiritual leaders, we will try to delve on this topic of how the Gita, which is taught to the most mentally controlled person, Arjuna, it goes beyond all those feelings of happiness and distress. See, throughout our life, we are trying to do two things. We try to achieve happiness and we try to avoid distress. Very simple. So, dvandva, duality. Only two things throughout our life we continuously do. One is we want to always be happy. And second is we want to avoid the distress. So, Bhagavad Gita is not just about happiness or distress. Bhagavad Gita is of a higher emotion. Bhagavad Gita teaches you of a higher emotion than happiness and distress. What is that higher emotion? The emotion of being satisfied. Satisfaction as an event, as a feeling. So Gita actually takes us beyond the boundaries of happiness and distress and takes you to a higher level of consciousness, which is a satisfied consciousness. So how that happens, it's a huge book, and I recommend to all the students that I think Dr. Prasanna Putane and their colleagues, they're planning some kind of a course on understanding this whole thing, how to deal with yourself and how to deal with the science of mind and spirit and emotions. So there is a course called a Journey of Self-Discovery. I recommend that all of you take it, because I don't think that it is a Hindu book which is trying to tell you something. Gita is not Hindu, Muslim, Christian. It's a book of science. There is no book written on earth as explicit and as powerful as Gita on the science of mind. In fact, there are various sciences combined in this one book called as the Bhagavad Gita. But the most prominent subject matter is, of course, the mind, because that is what was affected for Arjuna. Arjuna had all the weapons with him still. His Gandhi was there, his chariot was there, his body was there, everything was there. What was affected was his mind. So most of the things, and through that, of course, there are many other subjects like yoga and beauty and various things, even herbology. So practically all sciences are combined in that small book called as Gita, the 749 shlokas. So I recommend that, and we should take up that course whenever they announce it. So let's look at this. How do we deal with few of the things which in our life which affect us? As I told you that I give you the exercise that generally when we try to remember something of our past as the most impactful event in our life, it will be a negative event or a negative emotion. So these negative emotions, they can completely make you miserable. The depression, the suicide is, say, very common. Like right now, you can say that there is an increased suicide rate during Corona time. Why? Because people, those who are already lonely, they have become more lonely. They are locked down. Those who already had some mental illness, they are suffering more because there is already a chaotic feeling in the whole world. Because every day, a new information comes on Corona. Somebody says it happens like this, it affects like this, and then within few days, WHO itself will change the statement. No, it is like this. So really, it is very, very unpredictable, extremely unpredictable. So in that situation, the loneliness, the mental illnesses, they grew, and many more people are committing suicides. Right now, we are hearing in India that students are committing suicide who are not ready or who are unable to give the exams of NEET or JEE because of the Corona epidemic, and there are some people who cannot travel. So many things. Some people have not studied properly. Whatever may be the reasons, but overall there is a problem of, you can say, general confusion in the minds of people. So we will try to deal with this situation through the agency of Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just going to talk about something very practical which you can relate to as medical students and doctors. So I will start with my own experience in this Corona epidemic. So in the late March, the Prime Minister declared that there will be a lockdown for the nation for 3 weeks. And we thought after 3 weeks we will be normal. And we didn't take it very seriously. After 3 weeks, another lockdown too. Then we thought at least May 3rd it will open up. Then lockdown 3. That it went on. And then unlocking 1, unlocking 2. So that's all going on even right now. What is not changing is the corona. That fellow has stuck to his ground. He is creating havoc right from day one. Like when we started, even among the medical fraternity, when we had some kind of Zoom conferences on how to understand this corona. So initial impression was very clear that corona means death. Very simple. That is the impression in the minds of even healthcare workers. So many of our, I live in this, our hospital is in the Mira Bhayandar, which is a northern suburb of Mumbai. And here, most of the healthcare institutes were completely closed. And doctors had shut down their clinics. In that, the only hospital which was going on was Bhaktivedanta Hospital, where I'm working. And the reason was, the hospital is based on the principles of Gita. So the principle of Gita, which teaches you very simple fact, that we do not work for results. We work for duty. Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phale heturbhurmate sangotsva karmani. This is Krishna's advice to Arjuna, that you have your right to do duty, but you have no right on the phala or the result of that action. So naturally, as a matter of duty, whether it is corona or not corona, we need to work. So all our people, our hospital was the only hospital where everyone was still coming on duty. And everyone was, all the other healthcare hospitals, they were calling us and saying, "Hey, how you people are, why your people are coming? Why your doctors and nurses are still there on the duty? Can you send some of their video messages to our staff so that our staff can get motivated?" So it doesn't happen in a day. Every day there is a discussion on at 4 times in a day in the hospital, that we have the prayer session, and in the prayer session some discussion happens on the spiritual aspect of life, and that's where we discuss all these things. So everyone in the hospital knew that our duty is more important than how we feel. So they were satisfied with the duty. So that with that zeal, our hospital is working. And then because of that, the local MLA and the commissioner, they called us and said that our hospital is here, but it's not working. And, we are just trying to struggle out how to do this, how to deal with the corona epidemic. Can you help us? So they gave us a letter, and then our whole team got into picture. And then in 15 days, a 150-bedded hospital with 20-bedded ICU was set up with all the international protocols and proper treatment and taking care of the staff, everything. And it became a big hit. Means the newspaper, television, everyone covered it, because it was, to set up an ICU, it takes at least 3 to 6 months. So in 15 days to set up was not an easy job. Of course, I must give credit to the cooperation of the government officials, the commissioner, and people in general, and private healthcare institutes also, because many people lent their ventilators, some people lent some of the staff. Like that, it was a combined effort. So we were showered with kind of blessings and praises, and we were in news, and the whole hospital, everyone was very, very happy. And within the next few days, maybe in the next 10 days, immediately, while the time this is happening, the people starting attacking us. What was the reason? Because our lab, that time we were trying to, set up a molecular biology unit, which we did not have so far. And in the meantime, we started a collection of all the corona samples. So we would collect it and send it to either Hafkin or to Kasturba Hospital, Mumbai, or some other lab. But on every sample, it was written Bhaktivedanta Hospital, collection at Bhaktivedanta Hospital. So when the cases started growing in the area of Mira Bhayandar, every report read collected at Bhaktivedanta Hospital. So there is an uproar in public out of some misunderstanding and also some kind of political situation. They said, close down this hospital. This is a hub of the whole coronavirus in this area. Close it down. So there was a lot of commotion in the public, in the social media, everywhere. And there were groups of people who were solid supporters of the hospital, and they were fighting that, no, this is not true. We know the hospital. They have taken fantastic care. They are the ones who have set up this municipal hospital, etc. There was other group. Whatever it is the source of all infection. So ultimately, I had to go to the mayor and deal with them, explain them that because this collection lab is with us, you are looking at that only one address. These patients are not with us. They are wherever they are. We don't know where they are. Find them out. But it was a big issue because the commissioner had almost passed an order to close us down, and we didn't want to close down because closing down means, our principle was getting defeated. So this is the time we applied another principle of the Gita. What was the principle? Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labho jaya jaya. Whether it is happiness or distress, whether it is honor or dishonor, whether it is profit or loss, in all situations, continue to do your duty with the devotion to God. So this is what we continue. And in this way, we could witness all these things happening in our own lives, how the principles of Gita individually and collectively support us in the times of crisis. This we saw in this corona epidemic itself. And many more examples can be quoted. But now I will go to the general topic because all of you are going to become doctors. So I want to tell you something from the medical point of view, from the futuristic point of view. I don't know how many of you have heard something called as the phenotypic age of a person. So all of us know that when we are taught in the genetics, there are two types of sort of bodies with us. One is called the genotype, which is the coding of the body, and another is called as the phenotype. So genotype means the genetic code which tells you what will be your color, what will be your muscle strength, what kind of diseases you can harbor in your genes, what can be your life expectancy. So many things which are decided by the genes. So that's your genotype. That is coding of your body, future body. And the external manifestation of that is the phenotype. That is how we are presently identifying. This is me. This is Dr. Ajay Sankhe, or this is Dr. Prasanna Putane. So that is phenotype. So I will bring you to the point of what is called as a phenotypic age. So this is an interesting kind of a subject. So in 1988, in the Yale University, USA, some of the doctors, they started studying something which is little strange. That means they were intrigued by this fact that many people who underwent a complete health checkup, like today you go to any hospital, they have a health checkup package and they try to make it as attractive as possible. In fact, they give you 5-star treatment and you come, give your blood, within 4 hours everything is done, you are treated royally, and you go to our office, work there, and next morning or evening you have all the reports and which says you are perfectly healthy, or you need some vitamin D, or your lipid is deranged, or you go and consult this. So your BP is this. So this is the health checkup concept. Now in health checkup, generally what you see is your height, weight, your heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, lipid profile, renal profile, liver profile. So everything is told to you, and sonography, ECG, stress test, depending on your age. And once they are normal, they will conclude, oh, you are very healthy. So all of us having this experience. But what they found is that these so-called healthy people with all normal things, they suddenly die. Like we had maybe 7, 8 years back, we had one CEO of a very multinational company at the age of 41. He was a health freak. So every morning he would jog for 1 hour. And like a regular day, he's jogging. He jogs and he's jogging in the park. And in the park itself, he falls down and dies of a massive heart attack. All his earlier health checkup reports were completely normal. In fact, he was taken as you can say, a symbol of good health. Why does this happen? So they were intrigued by this phenomenon. So what they did is they studied 10,000 cases from 1988 till 1993. And in 10,000 cases, they found that very many people who are supposedly healthy, they have a higher risk of death because of certain parameters. So they concluded that there are about 9 parameters which were indicators of their actual phenotypic age. So now I'll define what is phenotypic age. So there is something called as the chronological age. Is the day we come out of the womb of our mother. That is our birthday. From there, whatever the number of years we have passed, like I am 58 years old now. So that's my chronological age. But with certain markers, I may be actually living a lifestyle of a person who's 70 years old. So that's my phenotypic age. My phenotype is actually functioning at the level of age of 70. Even though my cholesterol, blood sugar, everything is normal, blood pressure is normal, still there are markers which will tell me that I am actually living at the age of 70. So that's my phenotypic age. So when I'm living at 58 with the age of 70, I am at the same risk of death as a 70-year-old man. You got it? So now the interesting factor is, if you look at the average life expectancy of doctors worldwide, say IMA Pune itself had conducted a survey and they concluded that an average doctor dies 10 years earlier than their patients. Then they were a little surprised. So another study was conducted in Kerala. And Kerala IMA did the study and they found the exactly same thing. That doctors died 10 years earlier than their patients. And then there was a comparison. You can check today only Google pe jaake dekh sakte aap log. The American doctors also have the same problems. It's everywhere. Why? Now doctors do not have problem of eating properly. In fact, many of doctors are quite health conscious. So they will make sure that their blood pressure is normal, their vitamin D is normal, their cholesterol is normal. They will do everything and they do well on the parameters. So when these 10,000 patients showed that kind of thing in the Yale University, they really wanted to check whether what we are talking is true. Means doctors are also dying early. So they conducted another research from 1994 to 2010, and they took 11,000 patients with again those similar kind of reports, and the findings were exactly the same. That yes, there are certain factors which will make your phenotypic age higher than your chronological age in spite of having normal reports. Why? Are you able to hear me? Yeah, okay. So why this phenotypic age advancement is there? So two, three things they had concluded. One is some people are in poor nutritional status. Some people are having multiple illnesses, comorbidities. But the commonest factor was the chronic stress. They have not used unknown stress, chronic stress. Chronic stress, see, stress is something which is normal in life. We have to understand this. We talk about stress, stress. But stress is, there's no one living without stress. Try to understand this. Even the lion in the forest is living with the stress, even though he's the king of the forest. Because he's stressful that where is my food today? He has to work hard for it. But a stress which makes you work normally is a normal stress. That's not a problem. The chronic hidden stress comes from the negative emotions. I will quote one without taking name, a real incident in the nearby complex to our hospital. One of my good friends who was an orthopedic surgeon. He was really a picture of health. He would come in spick and span, white dress every day. Wonderful person, very sweet in talking. And he would meet me regularly in CMEs. And then I lost contact with him for maybe 1 or 2 years. So I didn't know why he's not coming nowadays. And then suddenly one fine day, I get a call that this person is extremely sick and maybe, he may pass away anytime. So I went to his house and he had a separate bungalow. He's a very well-reputed doctor. And I met him and I said, what happened to you? So he said, I went 3 chemotherapies and now because of pancreatic cancer, and it's for me, the chemotherapy is worse than my death. I want to die now. So then I started talking to him, what happened to you? And you are very healthy. And suddenly, then he told me the whole story, and which is another point of discussion. But for some misunderstanding with the patient, a political party got involved. His hospital was ransacked. His reputation was completely finished. He was so much maligned by the people that he just couldn't take it because he had a very good reputation, excellent reputation. And he was very popular. And that completely finished him off. It's not that everyone believed the propaganda. He could have very easily practiced again. But it broke him so much that he's practically closed down the hospital. And that's when within 2-3 months, he got that cancer. Now, I don't know whether it exactly like that it happened, but these are the examples where we can see that this chronic stress, which we cannot deal with, has a big toll on our phenotype, the body. There is a physical manifestation of what we go through in the mind. So this chronic stress looks like a common phenomenon amongst us. So that's why we can see that the doctors are dying at least 10 years earlier than the patients, common man. So I will just take a few minutes to tell you my analysis of how to deal with it and why it happens. So there are 3 things which we can learn from the Gita, which will keep us away from this chronic stress. So what are those 3 things? One is that whatever we do when we become doctor, we have a lot of expectations that within 2-3 years we should have a bungalow, a car, good income. But that is not the reason why we have become doctors. We have to understand this. In fact, these are not the reasons to live. We live because this particular body has a purpose. this particular life has a purpose. And to achieve that purpose, whether as a rich man or a poor man, doesn't matter. Achieving that purpose is the most satisfying thing. And therefore, that purpose, for that purpose, Krishna is giving the first sutra on the Gita. And that is, do not expect any results. You have only adhikar, or you have only the, you can say, right to work. Karmanya vadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma pala heturbur mate sambhotso karmani. So this is the first sutra by which if we live, we will be satisfied, because we derive satisfaction from not the result, but the fact that we did our duty. That I did my duty today and Krishna fed me. I am sleeping well. This is more than sufficient for me. All other things, money, this, that, prestige, is all side effect. It will come and go. Do not bother about it. Because no matter how famous you are, or how rich you are, or how beautiful you are, at the time of death, it has no meaning. It has zero meaning. The second point is, the result, because it is not in your hand, sometimes in spite of good work, dutiful work, happiness may not come your way. Distress will come. So there will be happiness as well as distress. Also, we derive happiness from relationships. Many times we feel that if we have more things, we will have happiness. That's not true. You try it out at home. Your ultimate happiness comes from relationships. And in relationships, there is one funny thing, which again you can analyze at home. That the behavioral scientists say that 80% around you, people around you, consciously or unconsciously, knowingly or unknowingly, they will try to make you feel hurt. Figure it out. Analyze it. Even though your close friend may be there, somewhere he may find, अरे बहुत उछल रहा है, इसको थोड़ा सा नीचे करना पड़ेगा. Why things like that? No one knows. Somebody like maybe your wife, or somebody who's your very close person, he may send an arrow of words to you which will completely hurt you. And these arrows of hurt, they are more permanent than the writings on the stone. That's why when we did the initial experiment, that what do you remember as the most prominent event, it will be generally a negative event. So this is second sutra which Gita tells you. Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labho jaya. There are many shlokas in sync with this particular verse, but I am just telling you because I quoted it earlier also. And the third thing, which kills us from inside, which gives us chronic stress from inside, is the envy we feel for others. You know, you have everything. You have everything. But somebody else, which is like you, he is like equal to you. He has got little more than you. So inside you burn. That burning is not good. It's chronic stress. So there is an interesting story from the Niti Shastras for this. So there are two friends who are just in the same village. They are staying next to each other. They have equal resources of farm, whatever, money, everything equal is there with them. And education is also same. But one of them, their friends, is flourishing much more than the other guy. So it's a story. So this person who is not doing so well, he is feeling very burning inside. Why? I'm working also as hard as him. Why is he getting more than me? So he petitions to God. he meditates, and suddenly God appears in front of him. So God asks him, "Kya chahiye, bandhu? What happened to you? Why you have called me?" He says, "I am very upset that I work the same, I have the same resources, I have same education, skills, everything. Why is he flourishing and why I am not flourishing?" So then God closes his eyes and he tells him, "Arey Baba, that's his prarabdha is like that. His prarabdha is whatever you will get, he will get double. वो आप जितना करोगे उसको डबल ही मिलेगा उसको. So it is prarabdha. So don't be envious. So no, but I can't tolerate this. You give me something that is more than him." So God said, "See, I cannot. These are my rules of the nature. The creation is like this, that I don't change the rules. So the rule is that he is going to get double than you. So I can't change it." So he said, no, but you give me something." So God said, "Okay, you ask me something, but remember again, whatever you ask, he will get double, even though he has not asked for." So this man was so envious. And he said, God, he thought for a while. He said, "God, make me blind by one eye." So in envy, it takes some type shape like this. You want to somehow cut person to pieces. So he said, "Make me blind by one eye." So naturally, he was expecting that the other person will now become blind. And God said, "Tathastu." So he was very happy that tomorrow morning I will have one eye and he will have no eyes, because he will get double. So next morning he was blind with one eye. So he was slightly unhappy, but he was happy that the other fellow will be blind. So he goes to his house, and to his utter surprise, he had both the eyes and he is seeing normally. So he starts burning much more. He comes back and again petitions God, and God comes and says, "What happened? Now why you called me?" He said, "I saw he has both the eyes." So God said, "Yeah, I had told you that whatever you have, you will have double. You have one eye, he has two eyes." So, nature of envy, it always kills you more than the other person. So give up. Give it up completely. Understanding that there is something called as prarabdha. Whatever you work, according to that, you will get your results. So all these principles are given very nicely in the Gita. And in the Gita, the most mind-controlled person, Arjuna, is motivated by the science of Gita to fight with equipoised mind, fight without any expectation of results, fight without any envy towards anyone. How does he attain that? He attains it by a superior form of mind control. And what is that? That is told in the chapter 6 of the Gita. Arjuna was thinking that how do I do this yoga practice as Krishna is telling me? So he says, "Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi balodradam." Krishna, this mind is very, very turbulent, very difficult to control. It is obstinate. I can't do it. I'm a military man. Tell me something else. So immediately Krishna tells him that what you are saying is correct. I fully agree with you. But you should understand what is this mind. And by practice, you can control it. And then he, Krishna, dismas manastasya yenatmaivatmanasta anatmanastu shatrutve vartatatmaya shatruva. That means a mind which is controlled is your best friend, and the same mind, when it is uncontrolled, is your worst enemy. So why not to make this worst enemy into the best friend? That is the whole science of Gita. And there is a beautiful shloka which is immediately next to that, which says, "Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahita sitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha mana pamanaya." For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached. That means he has already conquered, or he has already reached the Paramatma level if he has controlled the mind. Now, when you look at the sentence from the other side is that actually when you take shelter of the Paramatma, mind gets controlled. One is the ascending process by which you control the mind and you reach Paramatma. There is another descending process which is taught in the Bhagavad Gita. Take shelter of that Paramatma, and Paramatma controls the mind because mind is one of his energy. Mind is one of his energies. Out of the 8 energies of Krishna, mind is one of them. So energy is controlled by the energetic. We do not have that prowess to control. We can simply take shelter of the Lord. And that process is being described in the Gita, which I recommend all of you. I've just given you like an overview or maybe a very, very short introduction to the science of controlling the mind and harnessing. Harnessing has a particular meaning. Harnessing means when the horses, they are tied to with leather strips, and then you can make them carry load people. So if harnessing, that basically means the horse is very powerful, but you just try to use that horse in a particular positive way. So that is the meaning of harnessing. So that can be achieved through this science of Gita, and I recommend all of you once again to attend this journey of self-discovery where you can understand in depth the whole science of you, who you are, and why you are needing this kind of control over your mind to harness it in a better way, and what is the actual goal of life, and how to live happily with a good phenotypic age. In the phenotypic age, you can even reverse it. You can be 70 and you can be living at phenotypic age of 40 by a good lifestyle, not just of but a good mental, you can say, hygiene. So that is the process, and this is my conclusive remark for the topic of harnessing the powers of mind. I thank all of you for listening very attentively, and thanks for the opportunity which was given to me. Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay Sankhe, sir, for enlightening all the medical students, for giving the glimpse about the harnessing the mind power, as well as sharing your experience during the Corona pandemic. That was very helpful for all the medical students. So I request all the participants, the medical students, we are providing the a feedback form here in after this chat to kindly fill the how you are how you experience this seminar, and fill up that you if you like to attend this seminar again. So we will like to conduct this such a seminars in the future. Thank you, Dr. Ajay Sankhe sir, for giving us time to on this topic of controlling the mind.
So
I
are there
also
any
like
questions? Are there any questions? I was told that there might be some questions.
Anyone has any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask.
Sir, if the prarabdha is already set, how we can run the life forward?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get the question properly. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sir. If the prarabdha is already settled, then how come we will know what we have to do further?
Oh, okay. So that's a very good question. Thank you for that question. If prarabdha is already set, how do we look at our future, or how do we work for the future? So, see, prarabdha is something which is not that you can decide you will become millionaire or you will become a pauper. Prarabdha basically gives you an indicator in a particular direction. Say somebody tells you, some Jyotishi astrologer will say, you will go to America, but then you are sleeping and constantly thinking someday I'll land automatically be in America. It will not happen. You will have to work for it. You will have to take a passport. You will have to take a proper education. So that is the matter of duty. So therefore, Prarabdha doesn't stop us from doing our duty. In fact, we should do our duty perfectly. Like I'll give you the example of Arjun. Arjun was already told right in the beginning of the battlefield, battle of Kurukshetra, that Arjuna, know that I have already killed everyone. You are going to win, but you do your duty properly. So Arjuna did not say, "Abhi मेरे को arrows का जरूरत ही क्या है? I don't need the arrows. I don't need the Gandiva. I don't even need this chariot. I'll go home and automatically things will happen." Krishna does not take that responsibility. He tells you where you can go. And by Krishna's own mysterious, inconceivable power, he already also knows what you will choose. So therefore, he knows the prarabdha. He has given you the direction, but if you choose it in the right way, but if you are not going to choose, that also he knows. That is his promise. Okay?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, how to overcome from depression? This is from Siddharth. Shall I answer that question, Prashant? Prasanna?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, so as I said, now I'll give you a very simple formula which is looks very simple, but you need to practice it. So what is depression is basically a very extremely negative feeling of the mind. Dr. Prasanna Putane will be, he can give an academic definition on it, but it's basically a very negative. You start feeling sad, you don't feel like doing anything, and you become like a normal functioning is gone. Your normal impetus to work is gone. So that's what depression is in a simple man's language. So how to overcome it? See, this whole thing happens because, again, we have expectations. So in the Gita, there is a shloka called as Ichcha Dvesha Samuttena Dvandva Mohena Bhavata. The dualities of Ichcha and Dvesha. Ichcha means desires. So desires are there. Okay, I want this. I want that. So there are a lot of expectations. I am now MBBS or MD. I need this. I have to have it. Everyone has it. So there's a lot of expectation. Or in a relationship, we have expected. I must get this kind of loving relationship from my wife or from mother, father. So there are everywhere expectations. And when there are no expectations are not fulfilled, then what happens? You start hating that situation and hating that person. So a very beautiful formula, simple formula is given, which will counteract this Ichcha and Dvesha. What is that? A 2-sentence formula. Now you can apply this in your life and you can come to me if I'm alive at the age of your 70 and you will thank me. What is that formula? Always appreciate and never expect. Very simple formula. Try it out. Always appreciate. Appreciate means what? The person and the situation. Always appreciate and never expect. Ichcha Dvesha. It's just a counter of those two things. When you appreciate something or someone, you don't hate him or hate that situation. So always appreciate. And second is never expect. So no Ichcha, no desires. Just these two. And how to do it? Well, you need to get in contact with somebody who's already doing it. And that's where you need to come in contact with somebody like Dr. Prasanna Putane, who's practicing Gita. So these are simple and very sublime teachings of Gita. So you look at this, how the formula is given. Krishna tells the whole jad problem ki jad kahan hai? Ichcha, Dvesha, Samuttena, Dvandva, Dvandva, duality. That is causing all the havoc in our minds and lives. And how to deal with it? Never expect and always appreciate. So try it out if you can. If you cannot, then take help from people who are already doing it.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Any other student want to ask question?
Yeah, sure.
Sir, as you have mentioned that medical doctors have work stress. So can you give some tips about how do you cope up with the stress?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let me tell you, first of all, first let us be very extremely honest. So trying to live life with a facade of external happiness but internal stress is a very dangerous life. So when I feel sad and I appear sad and I don't mind it. Like I'm a pediatrician and I'm also the director of the hospital. So when I walk in the hospital, many people, they always wish me because I'm the director. I'm occupying the highest post in the hospital. Also, I'm one of the senior most doctors here. So naturally people say good morning, Hare Krishna, this, that, Namaskar, Chamatkar. Then, but when I have a patient who's in NICU or PICU, who's struggling with life, and I'm still, we see physicians and pediatricians, we have a lot of things to churn all the time. It's not like a surgeon who just cuts open, switches it back, and that's over. It's a dynamic situation. So when I'm engrossed in that thought that some patient is dying or something, and I'm sad, or something happens in the family or extended family, I don't try to hide it. So this is also another principle of Gita, which is we are following in the footsteps of Arjuna. Arjuna did not hide that he was in panic attack. He frankly said, I just can't fight. Not that, how can I give up at this time? No. He just told Krishna, Krishna, this is it. I just can't, I can't fight. That's it. Even though the whole war was fought on the basis of his strength. He was the hero. But still, he was very frank. So, if you ask me how I deal with the sad situation, this is how I deal with it. When I'm sad, that's it. But in my heart, means beyond that happiness and distress which we all go through, there is a level of peace which is based on the spiritual principles, which is based on the spiritual practices, which I practice every day. I practice at least 2 hours of chanting of the holy names every day, and at least 1 hour of reading and singing the bhajans. So 3 hours of daily, you can say, mental gym is there with me. The spiritual gym is there with me. So that gives the strength. And with that, through happiness and distress, the life goes on. Now, another it's a scientific thing. You can try this out and maybe you can figure out how to deal with this. But say all of you can see my palm here. It's a straight line. So on a straight line, it's like a x-axis and your life is going like this. Upar, niche, upar. It's like a wavy life. So mind takes you sometimes up when you're happy, then it goes down when you're unhappy, then it comes up again when you're happy. So there are moods are there. You are on waves of moods all the time, all of us. Now that wastes a lot of energy. A lot of energy is wasted on, even happiness wastes your energy because it's just a euphoric feeling and you want to do nonsense things and everything. And when you're sad, you want to do other nonsense things like you want to take drugs or maybe you want to indulge in some alcohol, whatever. So you go ups and downs, ups and downs. But imagine a situation where this is your platform and you don't go like this, but you go straight. You just, you don't go to the hills or troughs. You just go straight line. Imagine how much journey you can cover in the same lifetime. So that is the principle of neutrality which Krishna teaches us in the Gita. He tells us to be udasin. In the 13th chapter, he is telling us how to be udasin. He was specific use. Udasin means neutral. Neutral to the so-called emotions of happiness and distress. Not that when we feel happy that we don't enjoy it. We enjoy it, but we are still neutral to it. Or when we become sad, we are also sad, but we are neutral to it. We will not give up our duty to Krishna. We will not give up our day-to-day routines of work and spiritual practices. That is the way I live.
He truly said. That we can infer that how Bhagavad Gita is very practical in today's life also. The principles of Bhagavad Gita can be applied in our day-to-day routine activities, and we can excel in our field also. It is not necessary to give up anything. So Bhagavad Gita is very practical. So very thank you, sir. Anyone wants to ask question?
It's there in the chat box, sir.
Is already asked. Anyone? So there is a question from one medical student. The question is how to deal with the failures.
How to deal with the failures?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so on a practical side, there are enough people who will tell you how to deal with failures. That may, just few days back, I was looking at a talk by one Mr. Shiv Khera, who is one of the very good motivational speakers. He gave speech in IIT Delhi, and he was a owner of a mine, big family, and he had a lot of money, prestige and everything, thousands of workers under him. That was his father's business. So he was just married, and in 1971, when he was just married, suddenly the government took over all the mines. They nationalized it. And within a day, he became from a richest man, one of the richest persons in that area, to a poor man, because he had nothing. But for 1 year, they could, go on with their savings and, selling some furniture. But after 1 year, he couldn't even do that. So then he had to move to Canada. A very nice story. You can go through this. And there, he went further down because he never had any training of working hard, because he was sort of born with a silver spoon. So there, for living, with such a aristocratic kind of background, he had to wash cars because there was no food in the house, and there was a small child. So he told this whole story with his own mouth. And because failure after failure in his life, he couldn't go any further down. See, there is a point where there is nothing to go down. So from there you start coming up. And somehow from inside, he got that courage that I need to do something. He became desperate. And that's how within 2 to 3 years, by his again prarabdha probably, he became a millionaire. And today he is one of the big shots in America. So failures can lead you to success if you don't give up. So the sutra for dealing with failure is never to give up. Never to give up. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he had that attitude, never give up attitude. He actually tried his best in India for 40 years to do what he wanted to do in life. Every time he failed, but he never gave up. Even after reaching America at the age of 70 years, when people retire, he started his new career. At 70, even first year was a complete failure. He never gave up. Why he did not give up, and why so many people give up? That's the question to ask. So dealing with failure means actually telling your mind there is a purpose in life. See, a purposeless life cannot deal with failures. In fact, if you do not have purpose, I will give you my example also. At the age of 11, I was in a remote village in Maharashtra, and there was no connection with the city. There was only one bus coming in throughout the 24 hours in that village. And completely, there was no healthcare facility, and I got typhoid. What is described in double typhoid. At that time, they used to call it double typhoid. So 42 days I was sick. No doctors were coming. All bhagats were coming, and they were hitting me with some kind of funny things and trying to take out ghost from me. I still remember those things. And one day time came that now I will not survive. So I knew that I am not going to survive. And that night, because my family is from Warkari side, so all my uncles and everyone, they were all sitting and chanting, they knew that tonight he will leave. So everyone was chanting the name of Lord Ram and Vittal. And I was sleeping on the bed. So while I was sleeping, I got tired by sleeping on my back. So I turned on one side towards the wall. And the wall, now how many of you believe, I don't know. But I saw the Yamadutas. They were there, two of them. And they're laughing at me. And I immediately got very afraid. And I told my father, there are two people there, very horrible looking, and they're laughing at me. So he made me turn this side and he said, keep on chanting. So I keep on chanting and turn this side. Again, I got tired. So again, I turned to the other side of the wall. Again, they were there. Then I became very afraid. I started shouting. So my father, he told all my uncles to do more intense kirtan. So intense kirtan was going on. And then he made me shift on this side and put all the pillows on the wall side so that I couldn't turn. And in that state, I went to sleep, and next morning I got up, and from next morning, I started getting better. And within about 1 month time, I was back on my feet. But this particular incident, because I knew that I have seen Yamadutas, I completely lost my, you can say, interest in life as a child. So the only interest in my life at that time was, because I am not dying, therefore I am living. And I was actually surprised how people can be happy in life when they know they are going to die. So this went on for till I was in, and still I was praying to God and all. 11th and 12th standard when I came to Mumbai. Then I was taught the Darwin's theory. Now no one told me that it's a theory. They taught me as a reality. So immediately from a Warkari type of mind, I became an atheistic person. So I had no purpose in life. So I started doing everything. I tried to smoke, I never liked it. I tried to take alcohol, never liked it. So I gave it up because I did not like it. And then in the second year of MBBS, MBBS I was doing not for me. Because I said, my father and mother, they want to be happy in life, so I'll make them happy. Anyways, I don't have any purpose in life. In second MBBS, then I came to Krishna consciousness. And that made me have a purpose in life. And that's where my life changed actually. My life completely changed, and I started working harder, and I started, previously I was completely karna isliye karna. So I'm saying, if there is a purpose in life, particularly if you have the purpose to serve the Lord, to please the Lord, then you will do much better than the purpose of trying to please your own self. And you will excel. And you, even if there is failure, like Prabhupada had failures, but he never gave up because he knew whom to please, what is the purpose of life. So this is, I would say, one of the answers which can be given for the question of how to handle with failures, having a extremely good purpose in life.
So there is one good question. In the 6 months of lockdown, like many of the medical students had discontinued their study, but they are not unable to concentrate on study. What can be done?
So you can start with smaller steps. See, many times we also want to come back to some regular practice in a day. That is not possible. Just like we are today, most of the students and adults, we are hooked on to our mobiles. It's a big disease, whether we like it or we don't like it. If while going out, if there is no money, we are okay. But if there is no mobile, we are finished. We sort of become handicapped. And even those who are spiritual practitioners, every few rounds they can go back to the mobile. These are all facts. So how do we deal with such kind of situation that we are not used to now? In the corona, we are not used to study. Uncertainty is there. What is the point in studying this, that? So many things. But we need to come back step by step. So I would say take the first step of, maybe start with just 1 hour a day and step by step grow with keeping in mind that what is your goal in life. The goal in life is to do your duty properly. Karmanyavadhikarasya ma phaleshva. So remind yourself again and again that this is my duty as a medical student to study. So, okay, I have got used to certain different lifestyle in the last 6 months. Let me come back to my original lifestyle of working hard, studying better. By 1 hour, maybe every week, I'll keep on increasing. And like that, somebody may complete that whole process in 1 week's time, and somebody may take 15 days, and somebody might take 1 month, depending on what is the level of your determination, what is the level of your conviction.
So there is one more question, like maybe many of the medical students have become anxious in lockdown period. So how to cope up with the anxiety? So
yeah, anxiety comes because of lack of knowledge. So increase our knowledge. That means one of other things I told you already about the knowledge of Gita, about the purpose of life and how to live that life. So that is knowledge. You can start practicing it from today. But other anxieties like about our own lives, like many healthcare workers. See, initially why the healthcare workers were so anxious? Because the reports from the other countries like China, Spain and Italy, where there was massive corona epidemic. When we in India, we had cases in hundreds. That time they were already crossing lakhs of cases. So the statistics were very clear that 1/3 of all casualties, all deaths were medical personnel, healthcare workers. That was a fact. So naturally, the doctors themselves were very anxious. And I faced this question even in our doctors group. They told me that, okay, Dr. Sankhe, you are saying that we must do it, but this is the reality that 1/3 people who have died are our healthcare workers. What is our guarantee? These government people are telling us to work, but they are not going to take care of our families. There, again, I quoted the shloka, not in a malicious way, but I told him, see, today a war breaks out between India and China. And the soldier says that, I have my family at home and why should I fight? Why can't the common man fight? Is that acceptable? So I said same thing here. This is a corona war, and as doctors, as medical personnel, that's our duty. We better die while doing duty rather than not doing duty. And of course, the knowledge of proper care has evolved over a period of time. And I must tell you that if you are doing your duty properly and at the same time being cautious, like in corona, 3 things: social distancing, wearing mask, washing hands repeatedly, or using sanitizer. Now, all these 3 things, all our doctors are doing. We have been treating COVID patients since day one. And even today, 99% of all our healthcare workers are COVID negative. 99%. So this knowledge and experience give you freedom from anxiety. And it is not that freedom from anxiety means you are careless. You're very cautious. And the anxiety will be there. But even with anxiety, we keep on doing our duty, keep on sharing our experience with others, and being with those who are, you can say, more determined to do your duty. They do their duty. The company of such people will take care of our anxiety. So dealing with anxiety at this time would be to have proper knowledge and knowledge of the thing which gives you anxiety. Say that let's take the example of corona. So that knowledge will protect you. Like simple knowledge. Today, most cases who are dying in corona, they are not the cases who came on day 1 or day 2 of their symptoms. They are the cases who came very much later. They came maybe after 10th day, second week, which is a very dangerous week. So when you come at that stage where your oxygen requirement is already 10 liters per minute, it's many times it's too late. But if you come on day 1, day 2, so do not hide. Any one of you, healthcare workers, do not hide. If you have symptoms, go and check COVID positive, take proper treatment, and you will be surviving. There is hardly any death rate in this. It's like a common viral infection if we take proper precautions in the right time. If you come late, yes, there are people we have seen who are dying even at young age. Our 31-year-old urologist in Mumbai died. But these are some of the exceptional cases where they have either come late or they have been overconfident about their bodily strength. Here, bodily strength doesn't work. You might be a muscle builder, but your immunity will be weak because you are stressed out. Stress is one of the greatest components adding to weak immunity. So again, today's topic is very relevant for that how to deal with our stress. And therefore, we recommend the chanting of the holy names, following some spiritual practices, yoga, meditation on a day-to-day basis. So having knowledge of the thing which gives you anxiety and being fixed in your duty as per the religious faith you have.
So we can conclude our today's session. I hope that every medical student got benefited by this lecture. So we are very thankful for Dr. Ajay Sankhe for taking out his precious time out of his busy schedule. We thank also every student for taking out attending this seminar on the Sunday, which is very difficult for the medical student. And also I hope that medical student would like to have a future programs on this, so they can fill up the forms and share their experience.
Thank you
So much.